Welcome back, T.A. Mahoney, Tales from the Darkside. Bringing you a buddy of mine today I haven't had on yet, been doing this a couple years. We got Gil Castillo. What's up, Gil?
Hey, Mike, how you doing, man? How's
It's
everything?
Captain Gil, too, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Captain Gil.
Yeah.
Running boats now. I met Gil how long ago? 25 years?
Oh, it's been at least that, Mike.
And
at least.
Our buddy, I call him Big Sticky. Carl Hancock gave me a call one day and said, hey, you want to go to the Everglades, mess around with some alligators, see my buddy? He wrestles them. And I'm thinking, what? Yeah, my buddy's got a show. And I'm thinking, why hadn't I ever heard of this? He said, no, I know him real good. Went to school with him.
Yep, Carl and I grew up together. Played ball together.
Man, what a great time that first time we met. We had 2-3 days in the Everglades, and I'd never seen half the stuff and grew up here.
Yeah, it's a real cool area. There's a certain area down in there where right on the verge of where Big Cypress Swamp starts to turn into the Everglades is just the most beautiful place. It's just absolutely breathtaking.
Yeah, no doubt. And I guess you were doing a show over there in Fort Lauderdale at the time, is why we kind of spent some of your spare time there in the Everglades. You were pretty close there.
Yeah, I mean, certain times a year when we were performing that show, we would spend a couple of months down in the Everglades in Miami performing that area. There's a couple of events down there. There was one that was in Miami that started we did for about a decade, started in a beginning of November and ended up in January sometime. So we were always down there, always brought my airboat and explored and had a good time.
Yeah, that being there in the Everglades and having an airboat. Gil, you're originally from Tampa, correct?
Yeah, I was born and raised here, West Tampa, Ybor City area. My family moved out to a little bit east of the Temple Terrace area on the other side of the tracks.
Right.
When I was just a young guy. I think it was about third grade we moved away over towards that area.
And quite a few siblings you have?
I got a brother, 2 sisters.
Great.
Yeah.
And they were all around here?
All still around here, born and raised here, and been around here ever since.
You know, we went fishing the other day, caught some, you were on the boat with the Wahoo.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we had a good time doing that.
You know, it's really nice when you target that and you look at the area that you want to go to because of whatever the reasons are, or whatever the eddies are saying,
that's
the
a home
temperature,
run.
And then you catch them. What a great day that was.
Yeah, and
it was a little bit out there,
a long run.
I think we started 109 miles offshore.
Yeah, at 30 miles an hour. So you do the math, and you got a few stops there on the way.
Yeah,
as we're all getting older, stop the boat, got to use the bathroom, but talking, it was funny. We were on the boat and we had Tangles on the boat, and probably your first time you met Tangles.
Yeah, I hadn't met him before. Cool guy.
Yeah, a little bit unstable, but funny guy to be around. And we were talking about alligator hunting, and we were talking about Gil, and we were saying, and Gil, he did all this alligator hunting. Kachunga was the name of the
name
event.
of the show. Yeah, Kachunga and the alligator.
So Tangles breaks out with, the only alligator show I remember is the drunk Indian over there at the Seminole at the Bingo Reservation.
Right.
So I'm sitting here thinking, and then all of a sudden, what do you tell him? I was that was me.
Yeah, that was me. But I don't recall being drunk. Well, maybe that's because I was drunk.
He was probably drunk, right?
He might have been drunk.
and acting the fool, but it was funny because Tangles, he's really not that big of a guy, and Gil here, he's a pretty big guy, and he was kind of throwing a jab at whoever was doing the Indian, and all of a sudden you're on a boat 109 miles offshore with the Indian that was doing the show, right?
Right.
It was
the only one thing is, I ran around on that reservation for him for 6 years doing those shows and paraded around as an Indian, but I don't have a single drop of Indian blood in my body.
Right. But a lot of knowledge about it.
Oh, yeah. Well, you end up learning that, kind of on the job, training with the Indian stuff. I didn't know much about Seminole tribes or the Miccosukee Indians prior to me getting that job. But, of course, you worked there, lived there, was there for 6 years. You end up picking up stuff for sure.
Yeah. And I thought it was really cool because I guess during that time you gained a relationship with them, a real good relationship. And
I was for sure at one point. We spent a lot of time in Big Cypress down there on that reservation down in Hollywood, and things were different down then and back then, of course, than what they are now. Different. And Jim Billy was in charge of the tribe when I started working. I worked directly for him under the management of that small cultural center that was there in Tampa. But he came and gone a couple of times, and but he was in charge of that tribe and I worked directly for him, and he was a pretty interesting character.
Sure. I thought it was pretty amazing when I first met you there that we were running through the Everglades. We got to see that anybody that's been around a while here in Tampa remembers the Value jet that crashed with all the people in it that were commuting back and forth from, I guess, Tampa to Miami was the flight or something, either coming back or going there.
Yeah, it was shortly after I believe they left the runway there.
Yep.
When that happened.
It went down. Everybody died. It was terrible. There's actually a memorial out there that I got to see that I never even knew was there, and it was, you know, it's kind of sad. You see a bunch of stuffed animals and different stuff and kids, and they would write stuff and leave it there. And then we went to a working Indian village, is what you told me, and it was pretty amazing to pull up there. To think, you know, as we drive to the Keys and we go across Alligator Alley, whether it's the old one, which is really where more of that is, and you got the new one that runs through also. But as we drive, we don't realize what's going on out there. You know, there's people that actually live out there.
Sure.
You know, they got the huts, and we pulled right up to the island, and they treated this guy like he was, you know, one of them, and said hi to him and just kind of watched what they were doing. They were working on putting those huts together with the palmetto tops. And,
cheekies.
Yeah, man.
They're called cheekies.
It was pretty amazing doing that. It was a good time.
You know what's interesting of those cheekies? We built a bunch of them when I worked for the tribe, when it was there. For those of you from Tampa that might recall that, back when they had the bingo hall there and before the Hard Rock, they built this little cultural center. I helped build all of those cheekies in there. And at one point we had the world's largest cheeky. But you know those cheekies, and all they do is they put the palm fronds on, they overlap them in such a manner that they don't leak, number one. It's pretty interesting. And they've been known to last 20 years with nothing on it, just nothing.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's pretty cool.
We may want to go back to that. I don't know if you can get 20 years out of a roof
Out of a new shingle.
Yeah, we'll just go collect the dark ones. It's pretty amazing. So what got you into the alligator show?
So my first love, first thing I could recall really being fascinated by were snakes, believe it or not.
Right.
And my family owned a printing company here in Ybor City, and they were doing the printing for the Seminole tribe for the bingo hall. And out of high school, I was looking for a job. I got working over at that bingo hall, and word got around that they were building this cultural center next door. They had the alligator shows and some wildlife and Seminole culture, and there was something popped up about a rattlesnake show. And my ears perked up, and I ran right over there, and I said, "What are you talking about? You doing a rattlesnake show?" And they're, "Oh yeah, we're going to do a rattlesnake show." And I said, "Well, I want to be the assistant to the snake handler." The Indian boy looked at me and says, "You are the snake handler." It's taboo for us to mess with them. So from that point on, I started working for the tribe in that aspect, did the shows for them and the rattlesnake shows. So the alligators come along a little bit later. For 6 months.
Trained
so it's kind of funny story.
Rattlesnake show. How does that happen?
You know, there is no training. You got to understand how the Indians work.
Right.
If you say you want to do the show, the next day you're in that pit and you're doing the show, and that's just how they work.
Cow.
It's a very strange. There's no real training. I had a guy come up. So basically, how I got into the alligators, I was not a part of that show for about 6 months, and a couple of the Indian boys got bit. A few of them don't show up, and then when they did, they were drinking a beer on the clock or smoking a cigarette when the school buses showed up, and they're walking around with them a beer in one hand and a cigarette in the other.
Yeah, that ain't good.
So it wasn't good imaging. So Jim come to me, Jim Billy, the chief at the time. He says, "Hey, you like your job?" And I said, "Yeah, I love it." And he looks at me and goes, "Well, you got a new detail." And I go, "What's that?" He says, "You're going to be doing the alligator shows too." And that's how I got started. So sent a guy up.
What did you
kind of
think when he told you that? Were you excited? Or
well, no, I really wasn't that excited, to be honest with you, because
nervous?
I was scared. Sure, I was scared.
A little bit bigger.
Yeah.
Than a snake,
yeah,
right?
They bite a lot harder.
Yeah.
So I said to myself, I said, well, you know, I really like the job that I'm doing. The snakes were everything to me. And then a guy shows up out of Hollywood, Florida. His name was Skeet. Ended up being kind of a mentor to me. So Skeet shows up. The first thing he does is he gets out of his van. He had one of those four-wheel drive vans, and it was painted with a wildlife scene on it.
Right.
Panthers and alligators and all that stuff. And he shows up and his arm's in a sling. And I asked him what happened to him. He says, well, the gator bit my wrist and he rolled over 11 times. And it broke my wrist in, I forget how many fractures. He said like 14 places.
Special.
And that his wife literally climbed in the pit and jabbed her finger in the gator's ear to get him to let go. And when the gator let go, his arm unwound 6 times.
That's unbelievable.
And all I can think is myself is, and this is the guy they sent to train me.
Yeah. Oh,
so at the
wow.
time, and that's a true story. And so, in fact, the first thing he said with his arm in a sling, he says, now we're going to go into that pit. There's about 25 gators in that pit, and you're going to grab one by the tail. And I'd seen the boys do it all the time,
Right.
but, it's something I never tried.
Were they all sizes? In the pit?
Yes, anywhere from, 6 to 8 foot gators.
Good
And,
ones.
intimidating.
hurt you. Yeah,
Intimidating.
yeah.
Well, the 6-footer tore his arm up.
Yeah.
When he told me, he said the first 2 doctors wanted to amputate his arm, but he ended up getting it saved by a guy from Africa, flew in that was dealt with crocodile bites in the past, and was able to save his arm. He had about 70% range of motion. He was still going through the recovery and the therapy.
Right.
Had a big bad infection in the bone was the main problem.
Yeah.
So he tells me to grab one of those things by the tail. So I do. And I pulled it up on the little sandy area.
Right.
Back then there was a circle of water within the center, a little island of sand. And I pulled it out, and he says, now reach underneath the jaw of the gator and then put your thumb over the top jaw. And when I did, the gator opened his mouth and stuck my thumb right in his mouth. He closed down on my mouth, and I yanked my hand out, screamed. And he goes, man, I told you to put your thumb over the top. So I went to the side. And so that was my first lesson.
He got you good, huh?
I kind of ripped my finger.
Infection?
No, it was my side of my thumb and mostly a flesh thing, but the damage was done when I yanked my thumb out.
Yeah.
That was just an instant.
And those small
response.
ones, a lot of people don't realize that those teeth are razor sharp.
Well, they're sharp.
Even this one here is 9 foot. Those teeth,
They're sharp, but what happens is the pressure.
yeah.
That doesn't need to be sharp. When they have
Right.
that kind 3,500 pounds of pressure per square inch on those big gators. They're not as much on the smaller ones, but the bigger they get, the more pressure they get. And it doesn't have to be sharp with that kind of pressure.
So-
you just go through whatever you push it in.
So did OSHA come out and look at the thumb and how you got it
No,
caught?
no. He just told me to go put a Band-Aid on it and see me back in the morning, and that's what I did. So that's how it started with the gators. And the very first time I got a cut on my finger and my thumb.
Now that
And,
we're talking about it, how many times have you been bit by
I
alligators?
really couldn't tell you, Mike.
A lot?
A lot. Probably
Yeah.
had about 8, 9 surgeries, cut tendons and such, and a couple
Wow.
of times you have to redo them because infection or whatever.
And was it something that you just got lazy about the safety of being around them?
No,
being
I mean
used to it, or?
you're only perfect.
Right.
100% of the time is never. You're only in some cases, if you do everything right, you still get bit. But in most cases, you made a mistake. So you can only be perfect so much where you don't get hurt
That's right.
ever. And I don't know anybody perfect, and I'm certainly not. And so we make mistakes. Once in a while, you'll make a mistake, you get away with it.
Right.
But inside your head, that was just a bad thing.
Yeah, that I
And
shouldn't
you
have
get,
done
yeah,
that.
it was
That's
bad.
right.
So you get quite a few of those moments, and over the course of, I did that show for 37 years.
Yeah.
So you get those moments, or you're running around if you're trying to get to the backside of the gator or get on the top of the back of the gator. He's trying to face you at all times. You're running around. Heck, you're in the water. You slip. You
Well,
fall.
and it's a numbers game,
It's
right?
just nobody's perfect.
Yeah.
So you get bit, and you only pray that when it happens, that you're coherent enough to kind of respond in a way that helps you instead of
Yeah.
hurting you.
Yeah, that's for sure. The biggest difference, it's funny, a lot of times when I got to know you and just talking with different family members about alligator hunting, they'll put the two in the same category as far as hunting and handling.
Completely different.
And I'm going to tell you, I'm the first one to tell you, I put my hands on them when they're already gone. We're real close to it. I'm not somebody that handles one. I'm not saying I hadn't helped hold one or I hadn't helped, release one, or I've done all kinds of that. But
Sure.
It's usually with somebody like yourself who's a trapper, licensed, if that's what they're doing, and they're telling me what to do. But the mouth is already shut, and I know when he starts to roll.
Right.
Sometimes if he's big and got that weight, you can't stop him.
You can't.
You know?
They're so strong. That
Yeah.
tail is designed in a way that they've evolved. They're so strong at that. You can't stop them. On a big gator, you're just
Right.
not going to stop them.
I-
So I also was the trapper for the state, an agent
I
for
got you.
Pasco, and you're absolutely right. When I went out to get a noose alligator, let's say,
Right,
it was never the same as doing the show.
right.
Everything is different. You set it up different. Everything's if I happen to hook them, get them to the bank, rope them, even after a rope is on them, you end up either tying them off to the truck, tying them to the tree, and then he's basically, he can't spin back at you, and you go around the backside. Everything is different. You know, it's a much safer way if you're trying to perform a show in front of an
Yeah.
audience. It's
It
just
gets
complete
tough.
two different things.
Yeah.
Absolutely different.
I agree. Can we talk about that time down there and
Sure.
the alligators in the boat and,
Yeah, man.
taking the big one?
What do you want to talk about?
Remember, this is all entertainment, just to entertain you guys. So don't take nothing to heart. But we went out there and we you were having an alligator show. And we had Bert, right? He was new then.
Oh yeah. So
So
what happens when I trap the gators? Basically, the way the state works is when you're a nuisance trapper, and I did it so that I can get the alligators, and it's kind of my
went
way.
hand in hand with the show.
Yeah, and it went
Yeah.
revolving door of alligators. We've got plenty of alligators, and then also kind of my way of giving back, because the way the state works, as a trapper, you cannot process or kill anything 4 foot or under. All of those gators basically are captured and relocated. That's what I enjoyed. I was able to capture and relocate those gators. I'm not a processor. Any of the gators that are over 4 foot, and now most trappers and what they make their money on is basically selling the meat or the hide. The hide has almost no value anymore because most of those high-end leather companies are raising their own gators, and those gators are usually raised in single pen environments, so therefore all of that hide is perfect.
No scars
Everything.
or anything.
So your wild gators are all scarred up.
Yeah.
And so they don't have the value that they used to have. So the trappers are mostly making their money on the meat. So they don't like going after an alligator that's under 4 foot because we don't get paid as trappers. We just do it because that's what we enjoy. And if you can make some money at it in
Right.
another way, such as selling the meat, then that's what you do. So I like to go and catching the 4 foot and less ones because I could relocate them. They don't want to do that majority wise because there's no money in it for them.
Right.
So I'm doing it because it's
fun.
my way
Yeah,
to kind
giving
of
back.
give it back.
Sure.
So anything above 4 foot, if I couldn't use it in the show because it was too small, it was smaller than, let's say, 7.5 foot or so, I would just give it to the processors. Anything that I could use in the show, then since I have a licensed facility, then I could transfer a live transfer of the gator that I captured
Right.
to my facility,
Right.
and which is what I would do. And anything too big for me, again, I gave it away to the trappers. If I couldn't find a home for it, I'd give it away to the other processors so they could process it. I didn't have a processing facility, so when you don't have that, because they're all USDA regulated, you can't sell the meat. So once in a while, I'd butcher my own, so we'd have some meat here and there. But for the most part, I couldn't use it. So let's talk about that time we're talking about.
Yeah. You hired a new guy, Bert.
He wasn't that new. Now, he wasn't that new, but he was young.
You know what though, and he was wanting to be big. You remember that? He was working out every
Yeah,
day.
he
When
worked
he
out.
wasn't alligator hunting, he was working out. When I
Right.
met him, he's all jacked up. Looked like he had sand spurs under his arms. They couldn't touch down. They'd hurt too much.
I hope he sees this.
Well, Gil goes out, nuisance gator, catches about a 9-footer.
Yeah, you were with me. He was what, about 9 foot?
Yeah, he's probably about like this one right here in front of us. Well, normally the new guy in the show has been messing with 7-footers, right? 7 to 8-footers. And anybody that's ever alligator, been around them, hunted them, whatever, 9-footer's the next step. You know, an 8-footer's a good gator, a 9-footer's the next one, a 10-footer. I mean, there's a distinct weight difference in every one of those, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah.
So we got this one. We're messing around down there. We get it in your facility, which is the show there, and the cages with the water and
Right.
taking care of them and all that. And he goes to do the show. I wasn't there to see it. I wish I could have. But he opens up that door, and one this size comes out. He's used to one about here, and this one comes out. And I'll never forget him calling you or something. We were together. He's going, man, why didn't you tell me you had us?
His arms weren't sticking out anymore like he had sense for his own.
No. That thing.
He kind of shriveled up.
And anybody who's seen that show at the fairgrounds, Gil's been there at the fairgrounds before, and
They were there for 27 years.
yeah. And if that you've seen the alligator show there, that was him. I took my kids up there one time. One of the funniest times, what he used to do is he'd handle that gator, and he always had the mouth shut, and he would get a picture. He would be on the gator, and the kid would be on the gator. And then right when they'd take the picture, Gil would get off the gator, but of course he had the gator by the mouth, and the kid's sitting on the gator by himself, and I'm sure I still got that
Picture. Well, it was more we acted like we were going to get off.
Yeah.
And the kid would freak out, and that's when we'd
Yeah.
take the picture because of the reaction usually of the kid. And that was always
And I'll
always
tell
a
you,
good big crowd. Crazy.
Just because I know him, I'm not saying this. One of the best shows I've ever seen, the way they interact with the people there, it was like the crowd was a part of the show, and it looked like y'all enjoyed it. I know that in the last few years that kind of put a damper on you, that whole pandemic and shutting all that stuff down, and we're going to get into that and what you're doing now. We got another segment coming up. We're fixing to take a break, and we'll be right back with the Alligator Man. We're back, round 2 with my buddy Gil, Kachunga. We're going to fast forward real quick, Gil. We've heard a lot about what got you into alligators and growing up here in Tampa, but let's get to what you're doing now. We were talking in that last segment, and we've all who are still here have battled through this pandemic and business, and I know for the entertainment industry like yourself with that alligator show, it kind of put a screeching halt to it, really.
Screeching halt.
I mean, quick, and you're somebody I really admire about it. You know, a lot of people, it blindsided them. They didn't know what to do, which way to go. I mean, you've done something since then. You switched gears.
What could you do?
Yeah.
You know, what could you do? You couldn't put two people sitting next to each other, so there was no show.
Right.
No
Nobody was
events.
having fairs, no nothing.
No events, no theme parks. Come to a screeching halt. And so basically, I've been a captain for I don't know how long. Decided to take my airboat and start running airboat tours. Started doing that as soon as I could, as soon as people were allowed to start, I think it was like less than 6 people or something, which worked for me because my boat only holds 3 or 4 people. So I started taking those out and their families usually out onto swamp tours. And instead of doing a 1-hour trip, we did a half-day trip. And as we were talking on the break, I started that just because basically as an airboater, I had an airboat since I was 18 years old. People would come in and out of town that we'd meet on the road traveling, and I'd once in a while give them an airboat ride, and they always said that that was the best part of their trip to the state. So I decided to approach a tour company in the same manner, and that is 4-hour tours, as if I had some buddies coming into town. So we'd bring them out for 4 hours now. They bring their lunch. They can bring whatever they want to drink, beer, truly, whatever they want, alcohol, beverages. It's a private trip. So we keep it real quaint, small. We don't put a big boatload of people on. We just put 3 or 4. And then we can go to places that I would have taken my friends or guests from out of town. So very interesting. And that kind of led into other ideas and other options. And I started running larger boats as a captain. Opened a small management company, and I manage some of the yachts. I have 5 or 6 boats right here in downtown Tampa that I run. I manage a captain, but we also charter the boats. So I've moved from doing that road show and traveling around the United States to basically sticking around here. Trying to make things work now in a whole different realm. It's all brand new, but it seems to be going pretty good.
You're hard at it for sure. Always on a boat, or always working on a boat, or
every
in your
day.
own boat.
Every day.
Down, I called you the other day, and you were on your way to the Everglades.
Well, I was late here today because of that.
Yeah.
You just got to do what you got to do, man. And it's exciting. It's new. It's different. I probably am working harder than I ever have in my life.
Right.
But, it's different. And as things grow and progress, hopefully I'll be able to have a few more fishing days in, which I haven't had much of because of, the schedule that we're doing. But not complaining. I'm actually blessed.
Sure.
Why I got my license as a captain years and years ago. I never used it. I don't know.
For it, right?
There you go. It kind of just maybe it was something, a gift.
Now you're up in Pasco, right, where your home is? Or
yeah,
whatever?
I'm still up there. I'm driving back and forth from Dade City in this beautiful traffic we have in Tampa.
Yeah.
The city of lights.
The heat of the or the heart of the monster, right? That's what it's like coming down.
I call it the city of lights, man. Look at all the beautiful lights we have.
Yeah.
They're all red.
Yeah.
They're all in a line, but beautiful lights we have here.
Yeah. I agree.
A lot of traffic, man. A lot of traffic.
So are your swamp tours, so to speak, are they all done down south in the Everglades?
No, we're doing them up in actually north of Tampa, about an hour. There's an area, a stretch of a river, the Withlacoochee River. Those of you that are from here, you know that river. It's still pretty wet. It's undeveloped for the most part. It's an extremely long river. It starts in the Green Swamp,
right?
Runs all the way out to the Gulf, up north by the Swanee. So it's a very long river, and most of it is undeveloped. There's little pockets and areas, that have some development on it if you were to run the whole length of it. But for the most part, that river floods.
Right.
And because it floods, the whole area on both sides of it is deemed flood zone, so you really can't build on it, which helps with
kind of nice.
It's beautiful. So it's still absolutely beautiful, pristine, and so we take these people out in those areas. And when the water's high, like right now, you could run to multiple counties through the backwood.
Wow.
Backwood. It's
wet.
It's absolutely, well, right now it's water everywhere.
Yeah.
And even when the water's down low, it's still a beautiful, beautiful, pristine river. So we have no problem running 4, 6, 8 hours without seeing, many times, not another boat, not a house.
Now, do y'all have a website for that?
Oh yeah, Kachunga Airboat Adventures is what we're calling those swamp tours.
All right, and a phone number if somebody wants to book one?
Well, if you want to book, just give me a call at 813-917-9378. We'll set you up. It's a 4-hour trip. We tell people, and when they ask, well, do we have to stay out 4 hours? No, you don't. We can come back early, but nobody's ever asked to come back early.
Yeah.
4 hours goes by fast when you're out there. You bring your lunch. You can bring, like I said, beer, wine, or something to drink if you want to. And after about 2 hours, we get off the boat, kind of stretch your legs. Got a little picnic table kind of set up out in the middle of nowhere. You get down and eat your lunch. We continue on. Right now, at this time of year, is absolutely beautiful.
That'll be the best time.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Well, all the northern birds are coming down from migration, and so they're everywhere. Alligators are everywhere. It's absolutely beautiful.
As bad.
Yeah, the bugs are never really that bad.
Over there,
yeah, it's not so bad until you start getting after dark or early morning before the sun comes up. But during the meat of the day, 9 o'clock on, we start our first tour at 9, and we do 2 of them a day, 9 to 1, and then 2 to another 4 hours till 6.
Yeah.
So really no bugs at this time of day. But it's a great trip. People have been leaving really great reviews for us, and I'm really happy and proud of that.
That's awesome.
My brother does that with me. He's a captain as well. He did the shows with me. For those of you that have seen the show, my brother Dave, he's always been there with me doing these shows as well. So we're just kind of doing something different, but along the same lines. We still love, entertaining.
That's the main thing. And if you've never been on an airboat, I strongly suggest you give it a shot. Do it with Gil. He's there's thousands of people that have airboats. There's probably 4 or 5 that I'll ride with, and those are people that have been doing it a long time. I've been in I was doing a lot of alligator hunting myself, and I was mainly doing it in Lake Hancock. It was about a 4-foot depth.
Right. I know Lake Hancock.
Easy
Absolutely.
to bubble trail, right?
Right.
And we would do it out of an outboard boat.
Sure.
But as other people started picking Hancock, you didn't always get your first pick, and you always had to go down the line. And I realized that somewhere, if I keep alligator hunting, I'm probably going to want an airboat. That's the way to, some of these lakes, you have to go into it. And what happened shortly after that, I was with a guy who's just like yourself, been on the water all his life, hunting and fishing, airboats all his life. We were on a lake that he grew up on, and they had dropped the water level. We had, you remember the magazine Airboat World?
Oh yeah, yeah.
We had the editor
Uh-huh.
of Airboat World. He did an article called Swimming with the Alligators. And why the name of that article was Swimming with the Alligators is we hit a post that night and ejected him and his camera into the drink. I mean, at least 30, 40 foot from the boat.
Wow.
This guy's been on the lake his whole life. They dropped the water level, and anybody that knows that lily pads stay up for a day or two before they settle. And this was a green pole sitting above the lily pads, even with them. And
And it was at night, I assume.
yeah, it was at night.
So you don't see anything.
It was right in front of us. My buddy, I felt like, made the smartest decision. He had told me after the fact he was going kind of into a turn. He said, I could have gone ahead and turned. If I missed, I hit it sideways. We're tipping over.
Correct.
He said, my first thought was square it off, floor it, and snap it. Well,
It didn't snap.
it was a ramp.
Right.
I mean, it was on Friday the 13th, and I can tell you, that's why I do nothing on, I'm not superstitious. I just ain't doing nothing on Friday the 13th. And I'd rather find out it's Friday the 13th that night right before I go to bed and go, wow, it was Friday the 13th, just not one of my days.
You're saying it affects your decision-making
Oh,
process
yeah.
throughout the day.
Yep, my friend Casey King was with me. And you know what was wild about that is I didn't get scared. I had a loaded spear gun. The jug came out of my hand when we hit the water. 1,000 gallons of water hit me in the lap. I was sitting in front of where his feet are, where they drive. I had a loaded spear gun. We're driving looking for big gators. You shoot them with a spear gun. It's got a jug on it. When we hit that and jumped, that jug went out of the boat. It grabbed a lily pad or a few. It's pulling my gun back to the back where my buddies are sitting. So all I could think about was both hands leaning forward into this gun so it wouldn't, I mean, it had the bands back. It'd go right through you.
Sure it would.
And that's all I could think about. Well, where it really started bothering me, this accident, so to speak, that nobody really got hurt, but it wasn't good, was after.
You start thinking about
On my
it.
way home,
Yep.
I start thinking about it. You know, I had
That's when the nerves kicked in.
I had a very, very bad situation happen 2 days ago. Could have been bad. 2 days ago, I'm at a ranch near Kissimmee, and we're hunting, and there's other hunters there that I'm not there with. It's, you know, a group of hunters, and me and my buddies are over here. Well, we're over in the kitchen, and I hear something fall off the wall from the cabin next door. So they went over there, opened the door. I heard say, "Oh my gosh!" And the guy ended up discharging his gun inside that cabin. And I can tell you that I've hunted. I'm 56. I started hunting when I was about 28. My dad wasn't into hunting. I did a lot of fishing. I started getting into it with the Croftons and different people. And I can honestly say, never have I been in a camp where a gun has been discharged accidentally.
Right.
Probably one of the most uncomfortable feelings, just thinking of what could have happened.
Sure.
308 will go through a wall.
Oh, yeah.
300 Win Mag, 270. May not be here today, but that is very similar to how I felt when I wrecked in that airboat, because it was more afterwards I start thinking about how serious that is.
Yep.
And mistakes you can make. And, you know, being out there, that kind of stuff with what we do. We went offshore the other day. We caught wahoo. We were 100 and something miles offshore. I don't remember seeing that many boats, you know, for help if something happened to us, you know. I know our confidence, and I got a ton of it in the Coast Guard. I think they're great people, and they come out in the most miserable weather to save us stupid people that want to go fishing or whatever we're doing, you know.
Sure.
But we're prepared. We got a life raft. We got an E-perb.
You're as prepared as you can be.
Yeah. Well, and you're not going to panic your way.
We've all had those
Sure.
incidences, and I know exactly what you're talking about. I know those feelings very well when something goes wrong, and at the moment, you're not affected by it as much because there's too many things going on, too much that you have to do. But then later on, it hits you.
Right.
You know, it hits you pretty hard.
You know, you're taking care of boats now. You got a yacht management company, and I say yacht. Give us an idea of what size boats you run and take care of.
Right now, I'm running the smallest one is about a 52 cruisers, and then on up to 85, and then also command a few 95 and around that mark.
Yeah.
Kind of large for this area. You know,
Yeah.
you're not getting much bigger than that in Tampa, but all that stuff's coming this way. We're actually not really well set up here on this coast for those big boats.
We were talking about that, how
You know, it needs to-
limited.
We're very limited. You know, we have a lot of water here, but we don't have a lot of marinas.
Yeah. And for those big boats, you really have tarpon springs and
Well, there's very few, like the 85 yacht, that thing tops out at almost 200,000 pounds. So there's only 100-ton lift that's here, and that was at Viking, and we tried to pull the boat out of the water. Actually, two. One is a Progressive, one is Viking, and neither one of those could pull the boat. So I'm going to have to move that boat to get a bottom job to pull these boats out of the water to a lift that.
Does it not work on these dry docks that they have?
No, it's just too heavy for them to pick up. So the boat, like I said, it started squealing. The alarm started going off on the last one. I think was either Progressive. It was Progressive, and we tried to pull the boat off. And because I think the boat, it's a 100-ton lift, but I think the boat, because of the way they had to strap it, it was a lot of the weight was on the back side of it, unbalanced it more so than anything as far as the weight goes, putting so much weight on that back strap that it just wouldn't pull it out.
Well, you know, what about the ships? I mean, they're
Those
bigger.
dry docks that are there.
Those are too much money because the
Sure.
boat's too small for
Yeah,
it.
you don't want to do that, man. I don't
So
know what
you're-
they'd charge you to do that.
You're headed to basically Fort
Fort
Lauderdale.
Myers. Fort Myers is about the closest, but up Owl Creek, and there's a couple of
And-
yards
or
over there.
I
And
know some of my buddies have gone out of here and gone to Orange Beach.
Yep,
It
yep.
just depends on what you need done, right? And
yep.
I know supply chain has affected all of us, and I know the parts that you need to get for some of those boats. Some of those boats have sat.
We just did a 3,000-hour service on this Asmont, and it took about 2.5 months to get, because you don't know what parts you're going to need
Yeah, till you get it
until
apart.
you get it apart. So the boat sat there and waited on a part to show up for almost 2.5 months.
Wow.
And we got the biggest company. We had Ring Power, this Caterpillar.
Oh yeah.
They're the
Great
biggest,
people.
biggest company that could do that, and they couldn't get the part in that we needed. So the boat sat there for about 2.5 months, you know. And so the supply chain's been bad.
Yeah. But they just have to deal with it like all of us do, and eventually, hopefully, get the part. And I think it'll come down to certain parts that are maintenance. You're just going to have to stock up on when you can get them,
When
right?
you can,
Filters or impellers.
You know, then you can do that, and we do
Yeah.
to some degree, but then you become a parts store in your boat, and there's really not that much space to put some of this stuff.
Yeah, there ain't much room. in
You know,
the boat.
yeah, thank God I got a nice little shop up where I live, and half the boat parts that are large, the stuff that I wouldn't be replacing immediately on the spot, I'm able to keep in a warehouse environment up there. But you know, for the most part, it's they don't have the room
And
that you need to carry all that stuff.
That's kind of tough too for a boat that travels.
Yeah, if you're traveling, you got to bring as much with you as you can, even spare props.
Yeah.
Some of these boats, they run over to to
They
the
don't
islands,
have
and
that. Yeah.
you might sit there for 6 months waiting on a prop.
Yeah.
So you bring as much stuff as you can with you, and then pray for the best.
Yeah, hopefully nobody else needs it. But most of those charter boats, you're at the docks. You're in what, St. Pete?
I'm in the
Clearwater,
downtown.
Tampa?
We're in Tierra Verde and St. Pete,
Yeah.
West Shore. Yep.
Yeah.
So kind of all spread out, but and then some of the other boats there. Everybody says the same thing. It's not just a Tampa or St. Pete. It's just it's everywhere. It's the supply chain is pretty
Yeah.
rough right now. Hopefully that gets better.
Yeah, for sure. I know Shimano at the beginning of the year, they told all the dealers, they said, we're done taking orders this year. We hope we can fulfill, and this is like in March, April. You know, you're like, wow, you know, but at least they let us know. They didn't take the order and say it's coming, and
Right.
everybody's sitting around waiting for
Sure.
it. But yeah, we'll get through all that, just like you did. Put your nose down and get to work, and that's what's going to happen. And hopefully everything will be better, and we can still go fishing. That's the best part about
The
it.
best part of the day, right?
Yeah, we had a good time, and I appreciate you coming out today, talking with us and sharing a little bit with us. Give your number out if somebody wants to take an awesome airboat ride.
The number is 813-917-9378. Look us up on the web at www.kachunga.com. And Mike, thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, great time. Thanks, Gil.